you know what I really love about hip hop?
What's that?
The fact that it transcends traditional culture, right? And what I mean by that, right? So like, culture is usually comprised of locality, shared culture, language, customs, norms, locality. And with hip hop, it kind of goes beyond that locality aspect, right? There's people in Japan, Germany, Poland, Africa that we share a culture with, right? Realistically, I probably wouldn't know you if it wasn't for hip hop.
As many of my friends,
you know, and that's fucking beautiful. That's beautiful, right? And that's what, in my opinion, makes hip hop the most, or potentially the most powerful force on the planet, if used for good.
Right.
That's not always the case, but such is life.
Yeah.
Right. And within cultures, you have subcultures. And what I appreciate about the Freestyle Clinic and what you guys were able to build over there is the community that you guys have created over the years. So for those who don't know, what is the Freestyle Clinic, and tell us a little bit about its history.
The Freestyle Clinic is, it's really just a regular cipher, but in now that's kind of rare, so that makes what we do rare.
Yeah. And
the idea is that everybody is gonna just stand together in a circle. There's a an understood energy pattern. That's why we stand in a circle.
Yep.
And I've been in a lot of different types of ciphers, but I personally like it when they just put music on and people rap to it and sing to it.
Sure.
That's my favorite type. For the Freestyle Clinic, it was born out of necessity.
Okay.
We were at, a lot of other ciphers, but the ciphers we were at that we were really having fun at, people just weren't really freestyling. And where we were from, it was like, we wanted to hear more people bearing their raw, energetic soul, their ideas, their downfalls, their uprisings, and everything. It all comes out in freestyle. So in that way, practice makes perfect.
Sure.
You want to make sure your dialogue and your content is all in line. But when people aren't thinking about that and you ask them to freestyle, they will probably not do it, especially if they feel like they have an image to protect or it's just not their thing. They know it's not as good as they're written.
Sure.
But like I said, practice makes perfect. So we just gave people a place to do it. That's all.
Now, so, I mean, like what was do you remember the very first session and what that looks like? Okay. So like, did you just
remember the feeling? So
how did that come about? Like, he was like, "Hey guys, I'm having a freestyle. I'm having a cipher over this place, and come on over and let's see what happens."
That never worked. I tried that a lot of times, and you get to the day you're supposed to do it, and everybody's busy, or you don't hear from it, or only 2 people are ready. It's just, the beautiful thing about the Freestyle Clinic was we never had to invite anyone.
It was just word of mouth.
Yeah.
Okay. So how did people find out about it?
So when Frank got his room down the hall from mine at that building that we're in Everett.
What year was this?
2010.
Okay. Wow, it's been going on for that long.
I was there for a year already,
No, I remember Streetlight days.
Oh, my God.
I remember those days.
Beautiful times, man. I go, Frank, come on over here, because he was doing things in his room like on Monday nights. He was meeting his friends, having 40 ounces, private stock specifically, that was their big handle, like it was just culture. That was what they did to,
was there a culture?
Yeah, and because they were, because of the music they chose, that was like the culture that they chose and that they felt, so
Absolutely.
That feeling, that vibe of just, hey, we just want to meet and have a beer and listen to some records was already carrying over to the building. So now we're out at these ciphers and we're out there like, hey, like people are telling us like, nah, there's no use to freestyling. Like, I'm not about it. I don't like it. Yeah. And I was kind of like talking to Estinak about it, and he just said, we should start our own Freestyle Clinic, all casually and stuff.
That's so dope.
Just at lunch.
That's how it usually happens, though. That's so dope.
And I was like, okay. I was like, be open to things. I'm like, all right. where would we do it? And he goes, isn't Frank and them doing something like that already? And I was like, yeah, I can ask him. But at the same time, I was protective of the new spaces we had, and I wasn't really leaving my door open.
Sure.
You know, so when I got to Frank and he was like, yeah, let's do it. And just like that. And I was like, oh, okay, I have to follow through with this. This is going to be great. And it's like kind of something I've always wanted, you know, as long as you've known me or anyone else we're around. Not to get too personal there, but when it came to Frank, it was like, so Frank, you know, how do you want to do this? Because Esty wants it to be kind of like an open door, he suggested. And Frank was like, that's cool. And I'm like, so
you're comfortable with this?
Like, yeah, I couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
But yeah, he was, even though he has equipment and, you know, things to protect, things that he loves, he was just more than willing to. And he was already there every Monday, like without fail.
Yeah.
So I knew if anybody was going to be able to pull this off, it was going to be at the Blue Room.
And there's a certain level of respect that Frankie kind of carries that people kind of, you know what I mean? Like,
you can see it.
It's just, you know, he's just he's solid.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? He's the definition of solid. And if you fuck with that energy, like I don't know Frankie that well. I've known him over the years, but I don't know him. I'm not close with him. But my impression from Frankie is if you fuck with him, then you fucked up somehow. You know what I'm saying? And nobody's perfect.
If he
nobody's
was mad
perfect.
at you, it would probably be for a reason.
You know what I'm saying? Like, it's like nobody's perfect, but
he brings this vibe into the room that when you walk into the room, you kind of see what's happening. No matter how your day, the worst day you had, probably the better, because no matter how your day went, when you get in there, you see everybody is not thinking about that. They're actually just either being creative or just absorbing whatever's going on, and it's a place to like relax and do that. So imagine that being just accessible to anybody who, you know, would take the time to be there.
Sure.
And that was really what it became. And then after some time, it kind of morphed into more of a clinic than a cipher.
Yeah.
Where like a lot of exercises were being implemented, and
can you give some examples?
A lot of structure. So if the cipher was kind of just, you know, spiraling out into wherever, which is great. That's actually good. Let me say something else.
Okay.
If people are in the cipher and there's not a lot of cohesiveness,
okay,
and there's more like non-constructive chaos,
sure,
and we're not seeing like the breakthrough that I'm looking for,
sure,
the one I'm practicing for, the one that's like, this is why I'm freestyling, because I'm good at it. You know what I mean? Watch what I do. You know, I don't even know what I'm going to do.
Sure.
That's all the rage to me, you know, the rave. But most people, that's kind of where I think they draw the line in their art, and they don't really want to be vulnerable or feel that way. You know, so in other words, when we had people in there that really didn't even know how to count bars, and there were more of them than did, they didn't understand what I meant when I said, like, it's going to be 16 now and then a chorus. I want you to, like, you know.
Yeah.
So we would just have to say, okay, here we'll do a counting exercise. So we started small.
That's dope, dude.
And then we'd say, all right, this is a 4-bar round. And some people like didn't get it, but what they did get was the feeling. So at least they kind of knew where they were supposed to come in. Yeah. And like, that's recently what I've realized is the most important thing, is just being there to support each other. Yeah. Not just in a community. I mean, in the cipher, you know.
Because, I mean, you feed off that energy. And like, what's really dope is, you know, another aspect of culture is the ritual. And that's exactly what you guys are doing in that cipher, right? If you go to countless cultures throughout the world, what they do is they'll gather in a circle and perform some kind of
beautiful
dance
drum circle with dance
or a song.
Yeah.
I mean, that's as old as time, right? And that's exactly what you're doing. You guys will even put a bucket in the middle of the cipher, and you can kind of look at it as for donations.
We used to do that, yeah.
And you can
when it was free,
and you can look at that as a tithe almost. You know what I mean? Like you're giving up a piece of you for the betterment of the community.
Oh yeah.
I mean, like, what you guys have created is everything that defines culture.
Right.
And that's I think that's a beautiful thing.
And
you know what I mean?
To build on that, what I want to see more of and what I'm going to create more of is exactly that, because my whole working theory that I want to share with the world, and at least with the state of Massachusetts, which the state of music in Massachusetts is like constantly in dire straits. Sure. You know, we're always on the low end of the concern or of the, you know, what's allowed on what premises. is always, we always get the bad end of the stick, in my opinion, when
Sure.
it comes to being musicians and artists. So I just want to say that there are reasons for that. And the reasons why people have a negative, view about music is because a lot of music individually has culture, but altogether with this other music doesn't. So it's like when events aren't specializing in culture, I think that's when you have a lot of people in a room that don't know why they're there, and things go the other way. But when people come because they know, oh, it's a cipher. Hey, I'm not interested in that. Can I swear? Do we swear here?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
They say, fuck all, I'm not interested in that
absolutely.
cipher, and I don't want to go. And I'm like, good, like, I don't really care, and that will never affect me in my life. I just want a few people who are interested in that and can relate to come in there and, and execute that, But the reason we never have any problems is just because we create or we induce culture, we use it. We participate in culture.
It's a vehicle.
More than even we create it. We're creating all the time during that, but like we didn't create the culture. We're just using that.
Yeah.
To get
You're an
through.
expression of the culture.
Yeah, and exactly. Yes, we're a manifestation of the culture, an expression, a side effect, just like anybody is of anything,
Exactly.
But especially that, but especially when you have a promoter who knows how to create culture in an event, and the event isn't just made up of all these things together.
Yeah.
It's all these things, but they sort of tie.
Sure.
Then your audience is bound to be like more supportive,
Absolutely,
more caring of each other, more understanding, more patient, more excitable.
Sure. Yeah, and what's cool, another cool thing about the Freestyle Clinic is that, because the overall theme, the point of it is culture, it kind of operates outside of the industry, right? Because when it comes to hip hop music, everyone is trying to pursue the industry, and they're trying to make a living off of this, and they're trying to make money. And that's where things get a little murky and messy sometimes, right?
Sure.
One of the impressive things that you guys were able to accomplish is that you guys had very little incidents over the years. I mean, I heard of there was one fight, I believe. I don't know if there were any more over the past few years.
Yeah,
but
no, let's jump into that for a couple of minutes. Like so I had been throwing shows since like 2006 personally.
Yep.
After, Gray Matters and Sabanil and like
Awkward
kind of
Entertainment.
schooled me, Awkward Entertainment, all kinds of eased the tension. We had like a lot of ideas and a lot of springboards. Yeah, I mean, we had a lot of great beginnings that led me to the point that I got to. I never would have been at the point I am at as an artist if it wasn't for the guidance of Gray Matter and of all the folks that we come to know and love.
Sure.
So like my relationships span 10, 20 years now, and in at least where I am, which is only important to me where I am. But we had like maybe I never had any incidents at any of the shows I threw. That's what I'm trying to say, and I never really knew why until recently. And it's just what I said before. Is just basically that we just inject and induce and produce so much culture that it's hard for somebody to not feel at home there. So people just feel at home, and they feel, and then that's when real creation starts to happen. And if you can document that, I think you have way better content and experiences than somebody who's not.
That's interesting because when you go to a hip hop show, your regular run of the mill hip hop show, it is comprised of different cliques existing in one space,
which you'd think would be a nice networking opportunity.
No, a lot of fights happen, a lot of jealousy. It depends on like the different. I mean, you have your street oriented music, you have your backpackers. It's different between the different subcultures. But with you, what it sounds like is the environment that you idealistically want to create involves everybody. As soon as you walk in, you feel like you're part of the whole.
You pretty much are, and you're watching it happen, and it's like happening off the top. And I think that's exciting for people. For some people, like it's really not exciting for everybody, and I can understand that. But
it's uncomfortable.
It doesn't matter to me,
Yeah.
For me, it's always been exciting. Kind of like the reason I like to.
Sure, it's your passion.
Yeah, and I like to be able to provide that open air, instant creation environment as a form of entertainment. I see like a lot of these, you know, let's say, I don't know really what to call them, but I guess you could call them the regular shows where there might be like 5 to 12 artists and maybe a headliner, or maybe not a headliner. Maybe there's just like too many artists, because
That happens a lot.
the problem becomes that if all those artists brought 5 or 10 people with them, they could show anybody that they can mobilize their fan base, which is what you want to do, right? But instead, the responsibility doesn't really fall on anybody except for maybe whoever's performing last. And
Sure.
that's why it's better to pick the artist you pick from, you cross-pollinate, but with groups that are already kind of familiar with each other and just need a chance to be together, as opposed to just completely random, whoever signed up kind of thing, because then you're
riskier.
Then you're, you know, and when you have a little bit of familiarity between the circles you can combine, they don't have to even be the same kinds of music. It just matters that the people sort of know some people from some people.
Sure.
That's how they make inroads with each other and make new friends, right?
Sure.
And then you have people that stay for the whole show because they're having a genuinely good time.
Yeah. You know? Yeah. So if I am a, you know, young aspiring artist and I catch wind of the Freestyle Clinic, I'm invited or whatever, and I walk in through your doors, ideally, what would you want their first impression to be after they leave that night?
Oh, well, for me, I kind of like am take it or leave it, you know, so that I don't have to really rely on how they feel about it or what their experience was. Honestly, some people have an amazing time, and some people leave early. Sure. You know, or just aren't, you know what I mean, enjoying it, or with someone who wants to go. Sure. You know, as in any kind of thing.
Such is life.
Yeah. Yeah. But most people who, I think if you went to find our spot, which is a challenge in itself, then you really wanted to be there. Yeah. And you found it, and you got there, and you were probably able to take something away from it. If you rap or sing, you have free, you know, you can walk right up to that cipher and go show, improve, and be part of something, be part of that energy. And when you're on the spot like that and you're forced to just come up with something, it really does bring out the best in you sometimes. And that's really what I'm trying to do for myself.
Yeah. Tell me about like the growth, right? So, you know, when you first started, you were using the Blue Room. It was free. With optional donations. Right. Now you guys have moved up to where you guys are doing showcases now.
Sure. Yeah.
So tell me about the growth and how that's evolved.
Yeah, we kind of moved out to it, like, you know, over the years. So we did 7 years of Freestyle Clinic right before COVID hit. Yeah. And over that time, many people were, why don't we charge? You know, and I considered it from time to time too. I mean, I considered everything. I considered quitting. I considered calling bigger names to come over. I considered over promoting. Sure. But we stuck to our guns. We under promoted. We allowed whoever was coming to come. 20, 30 people would show up. And, you know, so we did it for 7 years on every Monday for free. And we talked about like charging, and we never wanted to. Frank was mostly against it. And I just kind of deferred to him on things like that. Cause like, it's his space. If he's comfortable hosting it for free, like, what could be better? I really want to be able to provide that for people. But like when COVID hit, it was to a point where, all right, we obviously can't do this. You know, they'd probably come outside with torches if we kept the Freestyle Clinic open, you know, and we stopped for the time, for the safety of everybody, and we haven't opened it back up. We have a lot more productive time in there, to be honest with you. And we're not really ready to just commit to that weekly, you know, that weekly maintenance and commitment. Yeah, sure. So it was, what happened was we got the opportunity to get another space and to host it there with more people. So it was kind of a no-brainer, and like, to help to support the space, I think, you know, that was kind of where we were like, all right, well, we should charge something. Sure. You know, like, a lot of people spend $5, $10, or $15 on anything throughout the course of the day. It could be just snacks and candy, or, you know, drinks. Your breakfast costs about that much, you know. So we think it's worth it to. It's really worth it for us because I really appreciate having that commitment from somebody else for the amount that we give.
Yeah.
It means a lot to me
Sure.
to lock in that commitment from people to help us to sustain and be able to just continue to produce
Absolutely.
what we're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you guys are providing value to the community.
Right. And on top of providing culture, to add on to that, which provides like, a safe, reasonable vibe that encourages creation.
Yeah.
Also, when people commit to supporting you in a very small amount of money like that, but it's just symbolic really, I think that kind of also brings you the right people.
Absolutely.
And people who they really believe in you and support you, because if they didn't, there's no way they were going to be.
And they're invested in the
you.
cause.
And that little bit of investment really, it makes them feel just even more included,
Absolutely.
and more capable. So
Absolutely.
it's just empowering for everybody to have like a mutual commitment. Hey, we provide this, you just give us this. It's, and still keep the good acts coming in.
So with that growth, you just explained, what part of that growth would you say was intentional and what part was accidental?
Getting the room was accidental, and COVID was accidental. So
Absolutely.
if there wasn't COVID, I'd still have been doing another 2-3 years of Freestyle Clinic.
And it's funny how you guys emerged like the Phoenix and kind of grew, because a lot of things died with COVID.
Right.
Companies, movements, people.
Unfortunately, yeah.
And you guys seem to have emerged even bigger than what you were before.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's just about now being able to, again, just mobilize our support base. And to do that, I give them plenty of notice on the dates that are happening.
Sure.
I don't think that their main concern is even who is headlining before they find out. They're really just still very excited that there's a date being announced, that they know there's going to be 2 to 4 hours worth of cypher.
Sure.
That, to get that part of our growth happening and be creating at the same time.
So it's no longer weekly.
No longer weekly, and now it's monthly, and it's mostly the last Saturday of the month, unless there's like a special weekend we know people aren't going to be available.
Sure.
And that gives us just time to prepare, and we get to stock and decorate the new room and add. We're adding sound all the time. Yeah, so it's been really positive to experience the growth, but none of it, I don't think anything of it was really accidental, except for, when you get your idea and you go, okay, who am I going to involve? And you start calling people, and then they recommend somebody else, and then you talk to them and you meet new people, and that's the accidental stuff.
Just branches,
you just happen to be available on this date, and okay, then I'm going to announce this and let people know months in advance. Because another thing, right? We're planning. Anyone who is working on mobilizing a local fan base and working on creating a community in order to have their events be successful.
So your best guesstimate, how many artists have come through your doors, you think, over the years? Best guesstimate. I know it's kind of hard to answer, but
from 2012, November 26th, Monday night, the first Freestyle Clinic, to the last Freestyle Clinic, which was March something 2019, exactly 10,964. No, I'm just kidding. I think that I look at it in terms of what is my reach because of the work that I did at the Freestyle Clinic.
Okay.
So I have a Freestyle Clinic page, and there's 1,400 likes, and that means nothing to me because my post engagements are sometimes 4,000 or 5,000 in a week.
Wow.
So the little graphic teaser I do and the flyer I put up and the inspirational post or the tips I do on mic control and all the things you can scroll down and really learn a lot on the page, because it's thin. I'm not overloading anybody. So that's why I can reach out to that many people, because that many people have just heard about it.
Sure.
So that just backs up what I'm going to say next, which is I believe I have a reach through the Freestyle Clinic, through the work that I've done over the years. I have a reach of say 2,000 to 10,000 people.
Gotcha.
On, depending on how much time I have to reach them, it's, because I know that I'm in a circle of around 2,000 people that I might interact with over the course of 1 or 2 years.
Yeah.
And that their circles expand so far beyond that I will never meet some people that are doing exactly what I'm doing, in exactly almost the same way, throwing events or whatever.
Sure.
And, you know, so what I do will bring hopefully those people together, you know.
Have you found yourself having to manage personalities over the years? Has that been consistent? Has that changed over the
What do you
years?
mean by manage personalities?
Well, you know, hip hop by nature is a very competitive genre of music. Now, it may be a little different because, you know, it's your community is not so industry. Um, but do you find yourself, for example, you find yourself having to have to pull back an MC who's hogging the mic a little too long, or someone is kind of who's someone's content is bringing a kind of energy that's kind of contaminating the space.
Yeah. So yeah, I did before,
Okay.
and coming into the Freestyle Clinic for me, at first, the first 2 years, there was a lot of like really polished talent, and they knew what to do. Put it that way.
Okay.
So when it came to a point the 3 to like 6 year mark, those 3 years were more of the educating years, the teaching years,
Okay.
learning years for myself
Sure.
on how to do that. You know, so like I said, we spent a lot of time doing exercises. I would often somebody or myself might speak to somebody and say, you know, you have to hold the mic a little closer. And like, I want you to like speak from your stomach and really just let this go and, you know, not hold back as much. Things like that about increasing your presence and not shrinking it.
I don't mean to cut you off, but so that right there is you taking on a leadership role. Is that something
Right.
you've done before? Is that like the first time you've really kind of stepped up?
It's just maybe not in music,
Okay.
you know,
In
but,
other
but that was
areas in
probably the
life.
first time in music that
Okay.
yeah.
What have you developed as a leader over the years?
That's the
doing that?
thing, you know, like really didn't understand anything about leadership or
Sure.
that being a leader would be something I might need to consider someday.
Sure.
We were just trying to manage what was happening and it was unmanageable. So what I've learned is not to manage it anymore. And we had there are places that you'll go and there will be like a very strict implemented routine
Yeah.
way of everybody sharing and getting equal
Like
space, and
guidelines.
it's kind of really not. I'm not going to say it's not what the cipher's about, but it's not what the cipher's going to be about for me, or it never has been.
Sure.
And for me, it's really about being able to speak up for yourself, take your place, but know when the time is to do that. And you know, for that reason, I distract myself a lot during the cipher so I can just work off whatever the last person kind of said,
Okay.
you know, and rhyme off that. But what I found was the more that I did character managing, the more of my character I lost, you know, because I was too, it's a different side of the brain. If you're doing audio and tech and setting up the mics and also kind of offering guidance, and you have to be careful how you offer guidance because like your life is at stake when you're dealing with people's love, you know, and their love for themselves and their music, or their lack of love for themselves or for you. So every time I stepped out of line a little bit to like, you know, say somebody was doing writtens, you know, what happened when we were younger, if someone spit writtens, you would just like somebody would cut them off with a freestyle, which is really hard to compete when you're spitting a written with a freestyle. So you automatically just get backed down in that heat of moment, you know, but all that was different than it was accepted. Sometimes it was very comical, you know, like Alias, shout out to Alias and all those comical ass battles he used to do to just like make people laugh while insulting you and off the top. And, you know, so like when you start getting so deep into those parts that like I was actually emailing people every week, like with, hey, we all did good. Here's what I think we could all improve on.
Gotcha.
All of us.
Sure.
Here's what I learned. But like now what I've learned is that the most beautiful thing about a free flowing hip hop cipher that is done right, you know, like I don't mean executed right. I mean, all the elements are there. The talent is present. The vibration is real. And the music is inspiring. And when you get all those things and you put them all together, then you have like, you know, a whole completely different experience. So now I can stand there with them and be present as an artist, right? Without having to go, well, they're learning, so let me just allow them to learn more. You know,
Sure.
now it's more like they have learned. They went out and started their own ciphers. They're bringing back other people who need to learn, but they're going to learn differently because we're going to let it happen so people can experience what happens when you do something that maybe isn't being done or has more energy than somebody else.
Yeah.
So now, like someone does a written now, I'm not, you know, risking the whole mood of the night, taking their mic, potentially embarrassing them and myself, right?
Yeah.
It's all happens really quick and nobody cares 5 minutes later. But in that moment, it can be, you know, I felt it in the past.
Absolutely.
That's how I learned.
It's like a comedian bombing.
Right. Remember in the old days, they'd pull you out with a cane. I mean, it's pretty much that equivalent, right?
Yeah.
And so now it's more like, all right, I'm going to let it free flow and I'm going to be just the best artist that I can be because
Sure.
that's the way that I'm going to teach them to be better artists.
Sure.
So somebody does a written and I watch everybody, I watch how they respond to that and I let the person doing that see how they respond to that.
Sure.
And if they don't want to rebound from that, they usually just drop out on their own. And if person didn't get to rap, then they really have to like, they must step into their power and claim their confidence and take their space. Because as soon as we sense that you're doing that, we're allowing it. We're not even allowing it. We're still by it. We're stilled by it because we know it's coming, and that's what we're here for too.
So let me answer this. So it sounds like to me, the cipher, the night is part showcase, part artist development in a way.
Yeah.
Right? Because you're kind of showcasing your skills, your abilities in that moment.
Right.
And for a lot of artists, I would imagine they're there to practice and learn.
Mm-hmm.
Which of it is it more of? Is it more showcase or is it more artist development, do you think?
So it's like saying, are we more light or dark to me? Because like we're rays of light, but really we all have like darkness under us.
Absolutely.
You know, you're not going to see light unless there was some dark to see it in.
Sure.
Like you see a light
So
and you're
it's a
like,
yin
that's
and yang.
different, you know? So to me, the darkness is, you know, the deepness of the event is that every minute is artist development. So we have people come in with cameras. We didn't call them people. They're just taking pictures. They're developing as an artist by experiencing that time there, you know? And so are people who are posing for them. And so are people who are DJing for us. And so are the headliners. And nobody benefits more than me or the alumni who have like really spent so much time together. Maybe people came for 2 years and left, and like 5 years later, I meet two people together and I go, yeah, he's Clinic alumni. And they go, no kidding. Like, you know what I mean? And like, now things are really branching.
It's kind of like a fraternity almost.
Exactly. And there was nobody had oversight or control over that aspect of it. So there's no need now to further have control or aspect over the cipher, except I would like it to be circular. And, you know, I would like people to just like really let go and enjoy themselves, you know?
So when do you think, do you remember your first freestyle? Like as a kid?
Probably, yeah. Probably. Yeah,
Like
I can
when you did
pinpoint
it?
times. Like, it's like saying, do I remember the first clinic?
Sure.
Because I do, but I really remember the feeling.
Okay.
You know, and
But around what time? I'm trying to get
my
a time
first freestyle would be, so my bro taught me, and I used to freestyle a lot with Matt Gibbons. And this
Shout out
is
to Matty G.
probably like it depends when I met Luke. It could be 98, 96.
Wow. So 20 plus
No,
years.
I was a sophomore or a junior in high school. I was a senior in high school when I was really like, hey, I can do this, and I think I'm pretty good at it. You know, I didn't know what I was doing, you know.
Yeah.
I was just good at it, but I didn't know what I was doing.
So you've been, you know, working on the craft of freestyling for the past 20 plus years.
Yeah.
Now, take me a little bit into like what it is exactly, because you know I've been to a handful of freestyle clinics, and like there have been days where I've seen you snap, right? Like we can literally see you go into this flow state where you're not thinking, you're just flowing. You know what I mean? Because what holds rappers up, from an observational standpoint, what I see people hold themselves up is thinking. Like the moment you think during a freestyle, you're already late for the bar or for the drop or for the one or whatever, right?
Yeah.
Correct me if I'm wrong, right? So what makes up a quote unquote successful free flowing freestyle?
It's like if you thought too hard about walking, you'd trip.
Okay, that's
But
a
you've
great
done so much
explanation.
walking that walking comes natural to you.
Mm.
So when you make freestyle natural to you, it becomes very therapeutic, and you start to know what you're going to say before you say it, which is like out of this world. But that's all just from keeping like flexing that muscle.
Yeah.
And then you have the ability to create anything at any time right on the spot, because it's when you're on the spot that those muscles work the best for you if you have really worked them
Weird
well.
question. Does time slow down for you while you're freestyling?
Yeah, it doesn't even exist. You're right. When you kind of like black out because you're not thinking about walking the way you wouldn't think about running, or if you're a typist, you just don't think about typing. If
Yeah.
you started thinking about it, because they just get used to it. It's really no different than that. But once you reach that flow state, stabilization, and you're just kind of outpouring, in a way you're aware of it. But I'm usually so busy thinking of the words ahead
Yeah.
and watching people's reaction
Sure.
that there isn't really room for time.
You're in the moment.
Yeah, it's like saying like if you had a cut, or like you ever like hurt yourself on a bike, or you really felt like like intense pain,
Yeah.
the kind of pain where nothing matters until the pain stops.
Yeah.
In those moments, there's no time. There's just low bass.
So with the skills you've developed, in working in your craft, how has those skills or those abilities bleed into other areas in your life?
That's the beautiful thing. Like since I always knew that I would always like be musically inclined since I was very young.
Yeah.
And I always knew that at some point I always knew that I would always sing, and I would always do that for the rest of my life,
Sure.
And then another point came where, because in the same way that like every minute of the Freestyle Clinic is artist development,
Yeah.
the moment that I realized I was going to be committed to artist development for the rest of my life, for
Yeah.
myself,
Sure.
my own developmental artistry,
Mm-hmm.
that's when everything that I started to do in art, in the Freestyle Clinic, in my writing and recording started to pour into every other area of my life. So, for example, let's say you show up at the Freestyle Clinic, and because you want to rap, but you're like nervous to rap, or you feel the energy, that energy that I use to transform into rhyme schemes.
Yeah.
And I'm throwing that up the whole time I'm rapping. I'm just throwing up all that energy that I feel beforehand that most people interpret as nervous energy. But what if it's not nervous energy and it's just excitement? And it just feels different because you're not used to feeling that level of excitement and going to execute something.
So you misinterpreted it as
practice as well.
nervousness.
Yeah. Because if you practice well, when you get out there, you just step into your power. It just happens.
So you practice outside of the clinic, of course.
Mm-hmm.
Just like when you're writing in your car,
I
in your
try to
shower, or
write
something like that.
every 1 to 3 days to keep myself having the ability to write when I need to.
Yeah.
When that opportunity comes or something like that.
You're in practice because, it's funny you say that because I was actually watching, I forget who it was. It was a basketball interview, and they were talking about what it takes to play at the NBA level. And they were saying, like, if you're not practicing for 1 or 2 days, you're immediately off your rhythm.
Right.
You have to practice every day. You have to be in practice to perform at a high level consistently.
Yeah. Yeah. And, I will practice more when I have something coming.
Sure.
Although, as I said, like, first I knew that I was going to be musically inclined, and I just knew it.
Mm-hmm.
And then I knew that I was going to be a singer or a vocalist or a songwriter for the rest of my life.
Mm-hmm.
So in committing to that, it doesn't matter what else I do with my life, because I always know that I can still be that. I don't have to, in other words, I don't have to be me when I go on stage. I can be me. So that's why everything I do creatively pours into every area of my life and helps me.
Yeah.
So like I said, if you came to the clinic and you didn't know how to have your voice, and you didn't know how to you were not stepping into your power, right? And then you learned how to do that. How does that help you when you leave the clinic? It helps you talk to your teacher.
That's character development.
It helps you talk to your parents, the police, your boyfriend, whatever,
That's so dope.
So yeah, you get to pour that. So that's really the whole thing, is like when I finally committed to being an artist in development forever,
Yeah.
then I don't, I don't have to separate any parts of my life anymore.
Sure.
And I don't have to be more of one thing than any other thing. I'm just SETI now.
So tell me a little bit about the musical or creative environment that, kind of fostered and shaped your taste today. What was your household like? I know your father was a singer, right?
Yeah. My father was a singer, although like his style was,
More Sinatra.
he was like crooner opera.
Is that what it's called, crooner?
Yeah. He wanted to do crooner music and jazz
Yeah.
with a touch of operatic, theater in the vocals.
Sure.
So like when somebody ends a song and they're like, they end it like on an easy note, but the operatic guy will come in and like really he would just belt it out on this like
Pack a
really
punch, yeah.
yeah, like he sounded like how Pavarotti might end
Yeah.
that song. So, but as far as like in my house, it wasn't a lot of music. I guess what really shaped me was my bro was already listening to hip hop and he
Yeah.
was already learning to freestyle with
Yeah.
with people somehow out where we might hang out on the corner just to score some some drinks or some cigarettes
Sure.
or just to hang out and like just really kill time and be kids and play basketball and stuff like that. But
Yeah.
then there was like freestyling, and that just came from being around the place I was and what I was exposed to musically.
But you're also a vocalist. You sing. You sing
Mhm.
quite well.
Thank you.
Where does your style come from? Because I can't quite pinpoint because obviously there's obviously R&B influence, and it seems to me it's very apparent that there's rock influence. And correct me if I'm wrong here, but I feel like I hear some of your dad in there. I've never heard your dad sing, but like there's a crooner element to it almost. I feel like in some of the songs that I've heard you
Right.
create.
Yeah, it's funny because even like when I rap, I listen back to my acapellas to
Yeah.
hear what I did and what I need to make my composite better. And I hear that I'm rapping in pitch. I'm kind of like with the beat, even in that way.
Yeah.
So to just I always was a firm believer in finding your own voice.
Yeah.
And I had a lot of love for. I was exposed to a lot of oldies as a kid.
Yeah.
What you would consider oldies. That's just music from like the 50s and the 60s.
Yeah.
And then a lot of like alternative rock. So I was listening to how rock singers were singing. I was listening to how like Otis Redding was singing. I was listening to how Al Green and even like Whitney Houston were singing. And these artists that I would like, I'd say like, wow, maybe someday I'll be a great singer like them. Or I'd say, hey, Bob Dylan's not even a great singer and he's Bob Dylan.
No.
So so-and-so isn't really that good looking and they're on this magazine cover or they have this, whatever, this great job. Or so it's just start to realize that like, it's not really about your shell. It's just about what you're storing and what you're exuding.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to sing the most like myself that I could. Like my bro would always stress how important originality was.
Absolutely.
So if I ever thought I sounded like anybody, I would like really assess, okay, why do I sound like them and how can I sound different? But you actually told me that I was changing notes in the middle of like words I was singing.
Yeah.
Which opened my view a little bit.
Okay.
Because it was so early on. We were doing shows at Good Times, and it was probably 2003 or something. I remember I had just got off the stage, and you were like, "You always like change the note in the middle of the word. Like you were like, how do you do that? And I was like, I'm gonna keep that. I want to
you kind of bend
keep
the
watch
notes.
on that.
Yeah.
And then as you become a better singer, you learn like, how to bend them better and how to tail off better and like have your breath control at a point where when you end that word, it's still coming out the way you intended and you're not just losing air like pushing a balloon,
Yeah.
because your lungs are the balloons.
Yeah.
And your stomach like pushes up into
The diaphragm.
them.
Yeah.
Yeah, rappers and singers, we all need like vocal coaches.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, is there?
I had that too. That's also what made me a better
so you had a
singer.
coach
I had a
coming up.
coach
Okay.
here and there. My father would teach me stuff. I saw some vocal coaches from time
Yeah.
to time
Yeah.
to like reinforce that and to understand what he was talking about better.
Sure.
Yeah.
Is there a highlight that comes to mind over the years? Like, is there a session that pops in your mind frequently? It's like, yo, that was a really good night, energy wise.
I mean, I've been in the right place enough to have some really cool opportunities. Like I did a feature with, there were so many of us on the track. I'm not going to remember all of them, but it was like Colin Mitchell and myself. I think Lomel, Rex. There's one more. We might not really be that familiar, but we know of each other,
Sure.
and we just happen to be in the room.
Sure.
So like things like that stand out to me. Experiences back in the day when I'd be with Luke Dynamic, and we'd be in studios, and I might like have some conflict with the engineer. I learned a lot from those days.
Yeah.
And from how to execute my thing and be more confident doing my thing, and
Yeah.
also be more accommodating to what other people would like for the song they even have a vision for,
Sure.
unless it's my song and then it's my vision,
Of
right?
course.
And being open to ears and stuff like that.
Okay. Where do you go from here? I mean, you guys have reached a new point in the evolution of the clinic. And just in your artistry in general, are you kind of winging it? Are you freestyling it? No pun intended. Or do you have like set milestones in mind?
My true intention as an artist is just to grow as an artist and just keep like producing more of the material that has that emotional impact on people.
Sure.
That causes them to like love me and want to hear more music, because I feel like I'm creating music that's allowing them to explore themselves, because I know that I'm on some different wavelength
Sure.
of thinking, and I never really understood like how different it was, that when I say things, people are kind of like, would be like, oh, you're crazy, or you're living in a fantasy, and like later would come to me and say, you know what, you were more like on a spiritual path than I was, and I understand that
Sure.
now, and
Sure.
at the same time, like the thing that stands out to me the most out of is like, I had this one rhyme I wrote, the first rhyme I ever wrote. MC's new to this, ask me how I'm doing this, because I get praised like a motherfucking Buddhist is. It's like rhymes like that, like, bring your crew to this, I'll bash 'em in fashion, I have been known to give a headache to an aspirin. It was like the first stuff I wrote. Yeah, one of them. And this other one, some other things. And those things stand out to me. And like I went to this cipher clinic myself that was in New York. It was called The Wisdom of the Cipher, with Tony Blackman, who is like this cipher sorceress.
Okay.
And just has all this deep understanding of the actual mechanics of the cipher and the spiritual nature of the cipher, that by seeing her, it opened my eyes more to what I was already coming for and what I was already part of, and using and producing. And she just helped me see that in the light. Like when you learn the word, like that the wall is blue, but like all you see is the color until somebody says that's blue, and you go blue, and now you can talk blue to somebody, So that's just how I got there. I just got there and went through that. And the thing that stands out to me the most is the Freestyle Clinic. Every single one, even the one where there were 5 people at 9 o'clock and like 20 by 11 p.m. The one where we went too late. The one where I overreacted and got physical on, that I might have not had to do that, even though I might have been right.
Sure.
Or the one where somebody else like was there and they got a little physical with somebody, and that like was like our first like fight. We had like 3 incidents, 1 fight over 370 or 380 Monday nights with an open door in a building with no back door, really, to speak of,
Sure.
not in the room,
Yeah.
and no, sometimes no ventilation, and sometimes no, cap on what was being said, what was allowed to be said, or what was allowed to be drank or done, and to the point where it definitely got to the point at some point when I said, hey, like, you have been allowed to say what you wanted to say for a long time, and for the developmental evolution of everyone here, I need you to bring your content up a level, many levels, like, or I might have to call someone out for saying something completely out of line, because back in the day, if you listen to rap, there was a lot of competitiveness, like you said. Well, we're in a sports city, so that's where all that competitiveness comes from, and that drive to be better than somebody else or better than the other team. They do it to us in high school, and our football teams battle in the city, and the kids battle in the streets.
It's
The
part of
ones that
American
don't have
culture.
anything to do at night, would be battling on the bridge between the two cities. I mean, so when you start to take all that into consideration, it's just really important to have like an open experience like that, where there is like less oversight and like literally no rules except one: just do what you came here to do. Freestyle. That's the rule. That's all we ask. and having no other rules like that, but still having a completely non-chaotic experience. One time I had everybody rap together.
That sounds like chaos.
Probably like 10 of us in a circle or 6 of us. And it was because they weren't learning enough about allowing each other and knowing when their cues were being asked for or heard or you know what I mean? Like, I'm cueing you. Like, and don't wait to come in and take your time and just come in and know when I need that so I can do that for you too. And all that is like, so now you see that like it's more about like supporting each other.
Yeah.
And isn't that like what everything's about?
Yeah. It's more of a team than it is an individual sport, right?
That's what I learned from the Freestyle Clinic. So that's why the Freestyle Clinic stands out to me more than anything I ever have done or will do. And I really miss it so much. And I'm glad that the people who had been involved, so say it was 20 to 30 people every Monday.
Yeah.
It would be like 7 of them would be fixtures. Me, Frank, Kitty,
Yeah.
Slim Pickens, maybe 2 or 3 people from the circle itself.
Yeah.
Sometimes 5, right?
Sure.
But every night, who are those other 12 to 15 people? They were just, so when you start to add all that up, that's how you start to see a web built of over like 5,000 people. I don't really
Gotcha.
know how many people it is,
Gotcha.
but I know that it's not 500.
Yeah.
You know, we see that in like a quarter, you know, of the year. We're going to see that many different people.
Yeah. I think that's a good place to stop.
Yeah.
That was a great conversation, man.
Thank you.
I learned a lot. I'm rooting for you, man. I really appreciate.
As am I for you.
I appreciate what you were able to build. You alongside Frankie and Kitty.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of consider you guys like the leaders of that community. And I'm sure there are other people that I'm not familiar with.
Really, we're the facilitators. We
Facilitators.
just allow the communities that exist to come together, or the community that we've built to, again, like have a place to be.
Yeah.
You know, not having that place during COVID, it was like, I didn't know how that was impacting people because people were suffering from loneliness to begin with. So not having the Freestyle Clinic to come back to was,
Yeah.
you know, I was also like relieved, you know, of my duty
Yeah.
in a sense. Like,
Sure.
how else was I going to kind of break that chain?
Yeah.
But for people not having that, what happened was everyone just kept coming at me. It seemed from all ends of the universe to say, like, I was talking to someone one night and they were like, I really wish I just had a place to go and like learn to be a better freestyler, you know? And I was like, yeah. And I didn't go into it, but it was like, okay, I'll keep that in mind. And then a few people were asking me when it was coming back or if it was still happening. Random people would message the page if they could come by. And I'm like, this hasn't been happening. Like, you know, thank you for your inquiry. And then I was like, I think we really have to give it a shot and just see if the people are going to be there to support it.
Well, I mean, you've invested so much time and energy into it over the years. That energy is still lingering out there. So when there was a vacuum,
Like an old cell phone call traveling through space.
So when there's a vacuum, it just kind of comes back to try to fill in that space.
And if it doesn't, then we stop, you know, and we just take care of ourselves, and we can still do events and do something different.
And everything has a life cycle.
You know, but I think that our support is up, and there are some things we can do to even raise that support. And you know, ultimately, we still want this to be everybody's thing. You know,
because it is a community and it is a culture.
Yeah, and like, I'll be honest, like, it's selfish reasons I do this for. It's like, yes, I do it for everybody, but really, I'm trying to grow. So but just by that, people that come around are also trying to grow. So, you know, and I want to thank you for having me on today, for sure, man. I'm really happy to see the whole show taking off, and
I appreciate it, man.
Everything you wanted, that you have been building on for years.
Yeah.
I've been listening, watching, I've been there. And I'm really, really proud to been part of this today.
I appreciate it, man. Well, I'm glad to have you on. I would love to have you on sometime. Thank you for coming by.
Yeah.
And I'll see you next time.
All right, man.
Appreciate you.
Peace.
Awesome, man. That was a great conversation, man.
Thanks, dude.
That flowed